Hey there YouTube, I'm Yukitsu, this is Yukitsu Times, welcome to my channel, welcome back to a little bit of Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2. So today we're going to be taking a look at the more advanced Tau. This is when you've got everything unlocked. And we're also going to be taking a look at one of their other playstyles. So first of all, let's look at their unlocks here. We got the Stasis Bomb as the first thing that they unlock in the skills, and this is a decent skill. It's an all-rounder for a lot of different factions. It's going to be applicable here. I think that it's just going to be a good skill in general, being able to control the battlefield a little bit, force people to go in different directions, force people to use their boost. Any of those sort of things is useful in this game. So Stasis Bomb, definitely think that's going to be useful. Is it the one that you're going to be guaranteed to use? Not necessarily. Next up, Disruption Bomb. This one I think is only useful if you're going for the Tau Mercenaries fleet, and I do mean mercenaries, not merchant. That means the Nixar, the Demiurge, or the Kroot. If you're using those guys, then the Disruption Bomb is a lot more useful because those guys are more macro-oriented, by contrast to the Tau merchants themselves, who are more ordnance-oriented. If you're going for a mix, this could potentially be useful, but if you're going for a pure Tau merchant fleet, then the Disruption Bomb is just not really going to mesh well with the stuff that you're already doing. Next up, you got the Gravity Wave Projector. This one's actually quite good. The Tau merchants need to keep their admiral alive, more so than most other factions, and because of that, this thing is kind of useful. It allows you to sort of push away enemies and threats that are trying to rush into your admiral, and that is a common way actually to kill the Tau merchants. Just rush the admiral at all costs, even if you're losing ships along the way. This can help you sort of prevent that or stop people who are doing that, and it pairs well with things like the Stasis Bomb. If people boost out of the Stasis Bomb, you can sort of push them back into it with Gravity Wave Projector. It's a fairly decent one. It works well with the idea of what the Tau merchants are. I just think that there are other things that you should be doing with your admiral as opposed to taking this, because it can be an indicator that you're letting your admiral get into really bad positions that he shouldn't be getting in the first place. Next up, you get the repair drones. This one's awkward to use, but is quite powerful. It's a lot of healing, especially since it's across your entire fleet. If you're able to get your bruiser-type fleet composition and have it sort of sitting there and just repairing up every time something bad happens, then you're going to have a ton of extra functional hit points to the fleet that you're using. And this is a very, very powerful thing to be able to do against a lot of compositions out there. But at the same time, the tricky thing about the repair drones is that it's not necessarily going to be very easy to use this. Your admiral ship is the one that's going to be activating it, and because of this, your admiral actually has to be sort of either in the middle of the fight, or you have to have your wounded ships limp over to the admiral to get repaired. So it's a little bit awkward to use. I still do quite like it, though. Next up, we've got for upgrades the Strobe Field. Enemy accuracy is reduced by 50% when the ship is using either the all-head full or high-energy turn maneuver. As far as I know, this applies to things like lances as well. It just says it is reduced by 50%, but I can't really tell that from testing. So what this does is it makes it so your ships, especially while they're trying to reposition or get out of a bad position or get out of a bad situation, are a lot more durable to enemy fire. And it's a fairly decent ability to use, but it's not one that you're not going to be able to use consistently, of course, because you're not going to have the all-ahead full gauge full at all times. And it kind of makes you want to stick to the rapid reload thing so that you can use it more often, but you don't necessarily always want to be in that stance. I do think that it is a useful ability, though, and especially if you're going to be getting into sort of close scrapes, this can help quite a lot against factions that are using their weapons rather than ordnance against you. Next up is emission dissipators. This is not really the fleet for emission dissipators. They're always useful to a certain extent with every fleet. This is not one of the ones that I think really benefits the most from it, but there are instances where you may want to take it. And certain matchups, certainly, where I think they would be quite useful. But most of your ships are fairly slow, so the enemy can probably just get on top of you and stay there. If you're playing carriers, you kind of have to destroy the enemy fleet and do it before they can really get on top of your ordnance. If you're playing line ships with these stealth abilities, you're looking at the light cruisers. They're fairly weak, so the emission dissipator allowing you to ambush people isn't going to help them tremendously, just because they're not very good ships to begin with. There are some fringe cases, but I definitely don't think that this is the right fleet for it. Next up, Fire Warrior Breacher Team. This is really bad. You have to get your admiral into a position where he can board the enemy ships, and when he's boarding the enemy ships, he has to be able to... all it does is it causes a fire. That's all it does. It's not a very good effect there. It could, if you're really unlucky, destroy a turret instead, which is even worse. It's not a very good ability. Next up, Experimental Thruster Manifold. The rotation speed of this ship is increased by 5 degrees per second at speed by 25. This is actually a very good ability. I find that it's not necessary, but it does make a big difference for these guys. They tend to be very, very slow ships. They have a real tough time rotating. They're kind of long and unwieldy, so they're very vulnerable against torpedo strikes. This makes it a little bit more bearable, especially in terms of like dodging torpedoes. I find it's almost impossible without this, but it's not a necessary ability by any stretch of the imagination. I think that it's a very potent one though, and it makes your life a lot easier. Lastly, we got the Watercast Diplomat. This is similar to the Experimental Thruster Manifold. This makes your life a lot easier if you're using things like Kroot, Demiurge Tau, or the Demiurge Nixar. And if you've got those sort of things, this makes it so that they're unbreakable so long as your Admiral is still alive. Having those mercenary ships is already a game of protect the Admiral. Having the Tau merchants is already a game of protect the Admiral. If you're able to keep him alive, having those unbreakable ships really adds a lot to the fleet, because those ships can still be chased off. You keep them on the field normally by using the rally ability of your Admiral, and that's sort of how you keep them in the game. But with this thing, you don't have to do that. You don't even have to expose your Admiral to any sort of danger to keep them in the fight in that sort of sense there. So it's a very, very potent ability. I do think that this one's really convenient to have if you're going for that sort of brawler type build. And I think that it's not necessary, but it's one that you're definitely going to want just for the sake of your own sanity of not having to run your Admiral into fleets and constantly use rally. Although, admittedly, doing that has worked for me for a lot of fights. I have actually played Kroot mercenary fleets and Demiurge fleets without the Watercast Diplomat. It just makes it a lot easier. So let's take a look at our fleet here. Now, again, this is loading slowly. Come on. I don't think it's ever going to load. All right, so this is a fleet that does work before getting to level 10. You can take this at a new account sort of thing there, and it'll perform okay. The fleet's flagship here is the Ilfenor Delith. You can potentially go with a Tolku or something like that as your fleet admiral, and that will still work fine. There are even really good reasons why you might want to use a Tolku instead, mostly the speed. This thing's a little bit faster than a Delith, by which I mean actually quite a lot. You could also potentially use the Vashia if you really like that, if you prefer that. I prefer the Tolku. But in any event, yeah, you've got this little ship here. It's capable of keeping itself alive because it's got the ability to run silently. And that's what's going to be the protection for this ship. You don't need to keep it in the fights. You don't need it to be anywhere near the fights. You just need to keep it safe under all circumstances. So that's what this is all about there. Next up, we got the Kroot War Spheres. These things, probably some of the best brawlers in the game. They're very, very good at what they do. Just getting in there and start beating people up. They're probably one of the most powerful just short-range bruisers in the game, short of the fact that they don't have access to the armor-penetrating macro weapons. Certainly for their cost, they're the most cost-effective at it. If you compare these guys to the Avenger, these guys blow the Avenger out of the water just by a huge margin. Now, the fact that they're also immune to criticals makes these things quite difficult to kill to begin with. The fact that their weakness, being disorganized and mercenaries, makes it so that the fact that you can make them unbreakable almost a little bit broken. This is just a very, very powerful ship there. Next up, we got Demiurge Bastions. You can replace one of the Bastions with the Demiurge Stronghold and replace some of the escort ships out of here. So you could go with something like, say, this here. The problem with this is that you're then running only the one escort, which is a little bit risky. Now, if you really want to shake things up here, you could get rid of the Ilfenor and have the Ilfenor Kelshan or something like that, or even take the Galiath Borkan or the Galiath Vashia as your flagship, and then just keep it hidden in gas clouds or keep it running away from the enemy or something like that. Just it's a little bit more awkward, so I prefer taking this sort of composition. But you do want to have some fighter cover from something, and you do want to have some escort ships, so you kind of have to take them through the Bastions and through this stuff here. So that's the combination we're going for. I would have taken 3 Nixars instead of this Orca here, but I didn't have the points for it, just for theming's sake. And for our escorts, of course, we have got an Orca just to round out points there and 2 Nixars. The Nixars are mostly there because of theme. They are pretty decent ships. They're very, very durable, but they're not particularly good at their job. Anyway, for skills in this particular case, I'm going to go Stasis Bomb Repair Drones, and we're going to go, in this particular case, with the Experimental Thruster Manifolds and the Watercast Diplomats. So this fleet is all about getting into your opponent's face with those big, tough, durable ships and just beating them to death with them. They're pretty tough to kill, but it is possible to kill them. There are certain things out there that will just blow up your Kroot War Spheres, but they're pretty rare. One of the things that they're particularly weak to is torpedoes, so if I run into like any craft world elder, which I'm not encountering any of because right now they're super weak in my opinion, that nerf to them actually hit in like a place that makes them unviable in certain matchups basically is the problem, so that's the issue with that. It was a bad fix. It was a bad balance fix because they're really, really powerful still against certain factions. Like if you're playing as the Imperials, it's really, really shit. But if you're playing against like say the Orcs or whatever, it makes it so you can't really functionally play against them. Yeah, it's not a good. It wasn't a good change. All right, so we're up against the Necrons. Necrons right now I think are really, really powerful because people have finally figured out that they want their capital ship to actually be the little zippy bastard. Like a shroud or something like that, because they can use that to stealth around the map really, really quickly. And then whenever anything's about to happen that you don't want to have happen, you can just immediately pop your ship stuff and have them do something else, because they can all use that mass recall ability, which is really, really, really overpowered. Okay, so we're just going to have these guys over here just to cap some points and stuff like that. If I remember that they exist, I've been forgetting. Like, I haven't been playing very well lately. It's just the way of things. And for this stuff, we're going to go ahead and have you guys up here. We do want them on Brace for Impact initially. The reason that we want them on Brace for Impact is because if I've got them doing something a little bit more aggressive, they have that potential to get completely jumped on and just owned. You can have these guys on a reload stance, keep them farther to the back there. I don't want this guy to be in a gas cloud. The reason we don't want him in a gas cloud is because if he's in there, my opponent's likely to check those gas clouds. But we do want him to be close enough to help support our fleet, so we'll keep him here. Make you guys group 2, you guys group 3. Alright, and I would love to have these guys going up into this stuff. I think I've probably got time to have them do that, actually. If I, like, boost into that. This is going to be stupid of me, but... Alright. Did I remember to stealth my general? Oops, that was the wrong button. Anyway. Well, you know what? It doesn't really matter that much. Anyhow, we've got our opponent here. We can tell he's got certain things going on for him. Folks firing decks is always a mixed thing because they have got the ability to have immune to damaged decks. I'm probably going to go for engines. He can also repair destroyed modules, unlike other factions, so it kind of doesn't matter anyway. Alright, so these guys should re-stealth pretty soon here. And we're going to go ahead and... I think we're going to aim at this ship here. Now, if he's going after my Demiurge ships, that's kind of fine. Looks like he is, in fact. His fighters do lose against mine just because I outnumber his. So, and numbers are sort of a multiplicative thing. Like, if you have more numbers of fighters than your opponent, you actually deal damage a lot faster than you would think just based on that. Alright, we're just about full on these. We're going to go ahead and switch you guys to engagement forward. And we're going to actually start turning you guys around and get you guys out of there, because we don't want to be fighting those guys without both our crew war spheres. He's actually identified our war spheres, which is not ideal, but whatever. He's got 3 medium ships. I think he must have... This is a weird fleet. You don't see this very often anymore, in all honesty. Now, we can get our Demiurge potentially to start trying to fire broadsides with their lances, but... I'm going to go ahead and pop some fighter cover here. We know where his admiral is, so he's not going to be able to just pop in with his ships in the same way that he might like to. And I can sort of control a little triangle here, so I'm going to go for that. I'm going to move this guy up here. I think I can try and move these guys up here. Because I can get the lances to fire 18,000 with the lock on target thing. So this does like tiny bounce of chip damage, but it's better than nothing, so I'm gonna go ahead and just let that sit back in. Oh, and he has decided to jump in real early. So that was probably not the best move by my opponent there. Gonna be able to get out of range here. Can't believe he still has range. He must have... I don't know actually how he's still in range there. Alright, so... make this guy target priority number 1. Actually, let's just have both you guys head over this way. Gonna board this guy rather than their capital. Okay, this guy needs to be forward firing. I think that was early. Alright, lost some troops there. I'm going to go ahead and call to arms that. Get that full mining laser off against this bastard here. Alright, so we want these guys actually to be on the rapid reload stance. Get those guys out there, get this guy out here. Don't know what I was doing with this guy, but I'm actually happy with the results. Alright. Let's get this guy out of here, actually. But, oh, this guy really got shredded by something. Wow. I think all these fires are actually dealing a shit ton of damage to this guy. Anyway, let's turn this guy around here. Let's keep this guy relatively out of the fight. And I want to make sure that I'm not going to torpedo my own guys here. Can actually mining laser a little bit here. It's not going to deal very much damage, but I should have gone in for the heal against that, but I kind of don't want to bring my admiral in. It's still too risky, in my opinion. I can actually get this guy to run in and kill his admiral, like, pretty much immediately. Just going to go ahead and brace that. Emergency repairs. Boom, boom, boom. Use the rest of that mining laser on this guy. Alright, cool. Admiral, gonna bring him into this fight here. Gonna make this guy our next #1 target. And we're gonna go ahead and actually use boarding action against this bastard, while still targeting this other guy. Alright, drifting hulked it. Perfect. Get some of these bombers off this guy. Or onto this guy, rather. Need to move my Nixiris into the middle of these guys, actually. That's what I should be doing. Up here. How do you get 7 back? That's peculiar. Alright, well, screw that guy. Let's go ahead and fix that problem. I want to actually get this guy back around towards our Admiral here. So the reason we're doing this as we are is because I want that ship to be a drifting hulk again. Something that's probably going to require that. There we go. Fortunately, we had most of our shields up for that, so that's good. Let's get these ships all around this way. Let's get this guy back on rapid reload. All right. So we have got just about enough range to get this stuff working here. I like how my ship's not actually recovering any health for some reason here. That's not great. Alright. Well, either way, let's just send one of these automated bomber squads, or automated whatever squads, off there. Let's send this other group off this way. Yeah, I don't think the ship healed at all. That's interesting. Drifting Hulk to that guy again. Perfect. This guy's gonna die. Oh, actually, we can do that. Let's just get this guy up around that Drifting Hulk there. Not actually too close to it, of course. That would be bad. And I think we can probably go for some torpedoes here. There we go. That ought to do it. Okay. And that was our battle. So I don't think my opponent took the right composition, but I don't know what he should have really have done. He definitely needed to take something else for a capital ship. You want to have one of the shrouds of the Kopesh or something like that that can run stealth. What the hell do you have here? 3 Reapers and 2 Jackals. I'm not even sure if that's the full points. No, yeah, that I guess... No, I don't think that is. What the hell's going on here? Either way, though, you can sort of see that like gradual whittling down. Every time I could also get an unload off with those just mining lasers, just humongous, tremendous damage against Necrons. And they can't use the normal tricks against this fleet. They can't sort of use their abilities to just pop your morale down to 0, which is a very common thing that they can do. They can't do the typical sort of... blow up your ordnance because I'm not using a ton of ordnance. All they can do is just slug it out with my ships there, and that's basically what my fleet's designed for. He's got 83 armor all around. I've also got 83 armor all around. Both of us have a little bit of lance damage. It's just eventually I'm going to have more cost-effective ships at that sort of fight there, and I've also got much more boarding capability. I always make sure to board one of the ships when I'm against Necrons because it does make a big difference. You can disable one or two of their ships into Drifting Hulk status and stop them from boarding you. But in any event, that's gonna be a look at the sort of Tau mercenary fleet. So there's broadly those two styles. I don't think that the mill style works very well, but you can do it where you take some ordnance and you take some brawlers. It's a little bit tricky to play that one just because if the wrong things are in the wrong place, you're gonna have a real rough time. So if you're up against the Imperial navies, I actually think the missile fleet works a little bit more reliably, a little bit better. They tend not to have enough fighter cover to really block that. Same thing for the Adeptus Astartes. It's a little bit easier to take them out with the fighters and the torpedoes. Same thing again with the Adeptus Mechanicus. Chaos, I think, can go either way. If you're up against a lot of sticks, it becomes a really awkward game, and it's going to favor Chaos just a little bit. I think that their carriers tend to work a little bit better in a brawl, and that's sort of what carrier versus carrier comes down to, is a brawl. And your torpedoes don't make the difference up there because they've got enough carrier capacity to block your torpedoes. Corsairs, this one I would rather have the brawler guys with it, because the Corsairs are a little bit tricky to pin down in terms of line of sight. For the Azuriani, this is a hell matchup for the Tau regardless. If they've got like the Kroot War Spheres, the Kroot War Spheres just immediately explode, and that's not something that normally happens. If you've got the standard mercenary fleet with all the torpedoes, yeah, you'll probably blow up one or two of their ships on the approach, but then you'll immediately lose your capital ship to a bunch of torpedoes, and then you're screwed. So that's not a great matchup for the Tau merchants in general. It's one of the bad matchups for them, I think. For the Dark Elder, I think that you actually do better with the torpedo build. They suffer against mass escort, and the torpedo build goes for a mass escort thing. That really sucks for them. Orcs definitely don't want to be in a brawl against orcs under normal circumstances, but the brawler fleet can work. The torpedo fleet, I think, is a little bit more reliable, but there are some orc compositions that really just crap all over that. Although the orc compositions that crap all over that also crap all over the Kroot War Spheres, so you kind of have to be careful about that one. Orcs can have really weird carrier fleets that are really annoying to deal with, and the latter doesn't have enough fighter coverage to really do too much about that. Necrons, I think you want the Brawl fleet. They've got too much counter to ordnance right now. It's just hard to use torpedoes, fighters, bombers against them because they can just blow them all up and warp around and avoid them that way and stuff like that. If they can use their inertialist drive to jump into a gas cloud or something like that, you've just wasted a torpedo barrage that you're not going to get back against them, and they don't give a crap. They're just going to laugh from their stupid gas cloud. Against Tyranids, I think that the torpedo fleet is trickier to use, but if you can use it properly, is the more reliable one, because if you've got the ability to torpedo some of their ships, they're down, it really whittles away at their fleet and gets them down to nothing. That's what you kind of want to be doing against Tyranids. It's hard to really assassinate the hive ship with the merchants. They're not fast enough, they're not mobile enough, they're not hard-hitting enough. So I think that you kind of just blow up their peripheral ships if they give you a chance, and it's easier to spot them if you've got lots of escorts. Against the Tau Protector fleet, I actually think the Tau Protector fleet's kind of a hard counter against the Tau merchants, but the Protector fleet, I think if you're going to fight against them, you'd rather have the Brawler fleets. Of course, there's more to each of these matchups than really meets the eye. I think that those sort of two playstyles that I showed you, they're not the only ones. I think that despite the small ship roster, the Tau merchants have a fairly diverse playstyle, just because of how different each of their ships are from one another. So anyway, that's my look at the Tau merchants. Hope you found this one enjoyable, and of course, as always, hope to see you guys all next time.